Red Ray Gun Limited presents
The Benji and Nick Show. Well, hello. Good afternoon.
Good day. I can
morning.
never work it out. Good evening.
Goodness.
Loch Ness.
You got the lockers this time. Nice.
It's getting very random. Welcome to the Benji and Nick Show. What do we do, Benji?
Well, we chat about cult television. That's what we do. We have a good old chin wag, talk about things that come into our head, and every week we pick a specific program to talk about and give our verdict on. This week,
right.
What are we covering, Nick?
Well, we spontaneously do it as well. We don't plan beforehand. We're talking about an HTV/ITV UK children's television program called Into the Labyrinth, starring
yes.
Ron Moody, who became famous for playing Fagin in the musical film of Oliver Twist.
Certainly did. Great face as well.
Definitely.
Marvellous face. As well as that, we also listen to, we read out your emails, things that you've sent in to us, which is lovely, and we get to hear about what you're watching.
Yes.
And talking of what we're watching, Nick, what have you been watching this week?
Well, that's the other thing we do. Yeah, I'm just trying to think. I saw a film last night on BT Vision called Terminal. Have you heard of that?
Vaguely, the name rings a bell, actually.
It stars, I can't remember the name of the female actor, and Simon Pegg, and Mike Myers, and Dexter Fletcher. And it's a really weird dystopian crime thing that I didn't entirely like, but certainly found it tolerable enough to stick with until the end.
That's the new one, isn't it?
Yes.
It's a new film, yeah.
Yes, I paid £2.50 in order to rent it.
Can't knock that, can you, really?
I texted a friend of mine and I said that I'm watching a movie I've rented, and she texted back and said, "What? Do you live in the 1980s?"
Went down to the video shop. I miss a good video shop, I tell you. The joy of going there in the evening and picking a video. Oh,
I know.
Oh, and occasionally you'd find a real good bargain in, those X-rentals, they called them. You grab an X-rental and you'd be like, yeah, I got the rental copy of this one. Oh, God.
I know.
Bring it
and
back.
Also, even with the DVD shop, it's weird, isn't it? That, but of course, everyone wants to do stuff that you just press a button on a screen for, I suppose, and myself included.
Oh,
I found
absolutely.
the prices were a problem because I found that my local DVD shop was slightly more expensive than renting a film online. And I thought, what, guys? I mean, what? Am I going to spend 50p extra to get exactly the same thing? But I don't know. There's the whole sort of... It would be good if there are people in there who could recommend stuff. When I went to the video shop in Brockley in southeast London, all those years ago, there used to be guys there who knew stuff about films.
Yeah.
Who would pass comment on what you were renting. Seriously, you want to rent this? Yeah, what's wrong with it?
It's a video nasty.
I didn't like it. But that was there was a discourse, but
it was an experience as well. Like I remember because we had the little one, which was called the Video Club, which was an experience. It was a tiny shop in Bexhill, and it was run by this lovely woman who just used to smoke fags all the time. And if you walked in there, you think there'd be like a smoke machine, but it was just her having a great time. And then there was also the big Blockbuster, which was like another world. That was like travelling to America in the video club, sort of the video rental shop world. But I used to love it because the choice you get, and they had the adverts, wouldn't they? Like promotional adverts when the films come out, like the big posters and cardboard cutouts, and it was just, and they used to sell popcorn and things like that, and it felt like a real experience. Not quite the same. I mean, now we traded experience for convenience, which is not a bad thing. But
well, we did it. We all did it. We did make that trade, didn't we? And
that's life now. Life is very convenient, but perhaps not quite as exciting, one would say.
There was a sort of sense of excitement of going down the road to the shop, but all these things, in retrospect, we're excited about them. It's like steam trains. You know, people go, oh, beautiful old steam trains. And of course, at the time of them going, most people couldn't wait for them to go because they're sick and tired of the awful smell.
Oh, I love the smell of it, though.
And the smoke, and it's so bad for you. And it was just, everyone was sort of dirty and grimy. It's nice as a novelty, that sort of thing. But I was reminded yesterday when I was just picking my son up from school, I walked out of the school and I said, oh God, this awful smell. It just feels like I'm choking. And it was someone had a real fire burning in the house opposite with lots of smoke coming out the chimney. I said, it smells like a railway station. But my son said the same thing you did. Oh, I like that smell.
It's a lot. I've always loved that smell, actually. I will confess. I mean, yeah, they're all dirty. I've always loved steam engines, though. So I'm biased.
Me too.
I do,
but I do love them, and I love all that. I think they're good when you're prepared for those smells.
Absolutely.
But when you're not thinking, if you're thinking I'm going to have a trip down memory lane, oh great, the smell of a steam engine. But when you're just collecting your child from school and expect to be able to breathe normally, and suddenly you inhale a load of noxious smoke, you just think, I wasn't ready for that.
Coal fires do smell different.
Yeah, that's true. I was thinking, no one said to me, do you want a trip down memory lane to pick up your son?
But you would definitely take it if they offered you that, though. I know you would. You'd say, yeah, definitely. Why wouldn't I go down
if it was a trip down memory lane, then we wouldn't be picking him up. Because back in those days for me, from the age of 5, I was walking to and from school on my own. And now the idea of sending a 5-year-old to school on their own is like, throwing him into a fire. It's just sort of, you can't conceive of it. But that's what I remember.
The world's not as simple anymore, I don't think. I think it's so complicated. It's become its own animal, really, hasn't it? I mean, I'm sure
we've become more fearful, haven't we?
We have. You think it'd be the opposite, but I suppose, it's what's that old thing? Better the devil you know. We're moving so fast now that we don't really know what's going on. That's it's all got very deep. We've had quite a few deep conversations today, haven't we?
Luckily, most of them not recorded.
Yes, well, quite.
Anything else you've watched? I'm just trying to think of anything. What did I watch?
I watched
lots of news about Brexit. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, that's a whole. That's consumed a lot of my viewing time. I watched the BBC documentary. It's on for a limited time. They Shall Not Grow Old.
Yes, I saw that.
Which was just the most powerful bit of television I think I've ever seen. It just moved me.
Whereas Peter Jackson did it for the BFI, didn't he?
He certainly did, yeah, and he restored old 100-year-old footage of the First World War, and he painstakingly restored it, didn't he? I mean, it's unbelievable
and
what he's done. And colourised it, restored it, added in certain elements to show depth.
It's a frame-by-frame reconstruction of it, isn't it? And it looks not like it was shot yesterday, but sort of uncannily more present. When you see those grainy old films, it removes you from the suffering. But then when you see that level of human degradation and suffering, and there's a lot of unpleasant things to look at, a lot of blood, a lot of dead bodies, terrible things. When you see that very clear in colour, and they do toy with your expectations, don't they? Because it's been marketed as a film that's done this, but then for ages they just show you a lot of black and white footage in a small screen, and then they tease you, the screen gets bigger but it stays black and white, and then at some point it suddenly transforms and suddenly you are there in the trenches with them.
It's an incredibly well put together piece, isn't it, really?
And it's just the voices of people who survived, most of whom all of whom are dead now, are they? I
assume so, yeah. I mean, it's just all archive recordings and maybe a little bit of reading, words out. But yeah, it's there's none of that, in 19, such and such, this happened and there and this. There's none of that. It was just people saying,
their own words.
Oh, we had a terrible time. It's just, unbearable smell and, all these things like that. But also it's the faces of the people. And that's the thing that I always think about history, is when you see it like this and you see people's faces, they're just people. We have this feeling of like the past is this mystical it's old, it's not now, it's these people, they existed. Whereas this, when you look at it, you think these people exist. That's what I kind of think. You look right into their eyes. But there's some other stuff behind the scenes of how they made this film. I mean, it's incredible because all the sound design, all the sound for this has been redone. It's all been reconstructed. But even the little things like there was special. I can't remember if it was something to do with when they were recording certain scenes at the time. They had a way of determining how far away explosions were, and so they took that data, I think, programmed it in and made it so that the explosion sounds that you're hearing on these recordings are accurate to where how far away they actually were. Stuff like that. I mean, it blows your mind. But I don't think it's on iPlayer for much longer. So it's up until Sunday. So if you're listening to this when this podcast comes out, you might just be able to catch it. If not, I'm sure it'll be online for you to buy, because it's superb, absolutely superb.
One of the interesting things about the ADR and Foley dubbing is that they had a whole team of actors. I would say, I don't know, like 20, 30 actors they used for all the background noises and sound. And they've clearly gone in and they must have had lip readers involved to find out what people were saying. And I kept hearing a voice I recognised, and it was Tim Bentinck. I thought I turned to Steph and I said, "That's Tim Bentinck," who's played many parts, including Moriarty next to my Sherlock Holmes in the Big Finish audios. And sure enough, there was his name. And then I think Tim told me he was doing it. He said, "Oh yeah, we're dumping all this World War I footage," and Wayne Forrester as well, who does a lot for Big Finish, and both Tim and Wayne are well known for being able to do lots of different voices. There was a very moving bit where there was a padre in uniform conducting a funeral in the trenches, and that was when I really thought, that is Tim. I'd heard his voice floating around but that was definitely Tim.
It's funny, isn't it, though? The ears are so well trained, aren't they, to recognise things that these years. I particularly love the little bit. There's just that one bit. It really it moved me actually in a weird way, and I don't really know why. But it was a bit, they were just filming this chap who was standing there, and he looked at the camera and kind of smiled, and then just said, "It just went, what?" And but I thought, God, it's just so human, isn't it? It's just so normal when people, what. Yeah. Well, I thought, so I highly recommend that. I mean, I really do.
I saw a Talking Pictures TV documentary a few days later where they showed all the typical footage, but of course none of it cleaned up. And I suddenly realised that this really grainy, speeded up looking, indistinct image I was watching, where I could barely see people's eyes, I realised that I'd seen these shots in the Peter Jackson documentary, cleaned up. I thought, I've seen these many times. And so he transformed a lot of this old footage, which I'm very, very familiar with, having watched endless documentaries about the First World War. He cleaned it up in such a way as that you didn't recognise it as the footage you'd seen before. Anyway, yes, brilliant. I agree. I'm trying to think of anything else that I've watched.
I watched House on Haunted Hill, the one with Vincent Price, which is quite amusing.
Does he have the head of a fly and the body of a man?
No, I'm a millionaire who's offering X amount of money to people to stay in the haunted house. It's very, very. It's not bad. It's not bad. What else? I watched 1970 postcard from not Margate. Some rubbish travel thing that was on Talking Pictures TV, which was quite amusing. Just like a holiday promo, like, it was literally the case of like, why go to France when you can go to the Channel Islands? And that was quite amusing.
Well, they all speak English.
Yes.
All right, then. Well, I think we've exhausted our what are we watching this week. Time now to go to the emails sent to podcast@nicholasbriggs.com. Would you like to read out the first hilarious one?
Certainly. This first one here is from Thomas Hodden. and it says the subject is note from Thomas. It's the Facebook thing. Sent on the 11th of the 11th, 2018, which happened to be my birthday. So there we go. Morning, chaps. The latest the latest Benji and Nick merchandise catalogue dropped through my letterbox this morning, and I thought you might be pleased to know that the following can be shipped before Christmas. The Ghost Watch. A watch that disappears when you try to look at it, leaving you to stare at your unadorned wrist.
That's a lovely turn of phrase, isn't it? I'm afraid my wrist is unadorned. Mine is as well, because my watch, the battery's gone and I haven't bothered to replace it. So I have an unadorned wrist, or maybe it was a ghost watch.
Yeah, but the watch still works though. Twice a day. So we've got here Jamie Anderson's pocket protector, a 3-inch tall Robert Vaughan who will suavely solve mysteries while standing in your breast pocket. Oh yes, I'd go for that.
He's talking about the protectors there, isn't he?
Very clever. Do you want to read this next one out, Nick, just to vary up this sales pitch?
A Sky Dish. A satellite dish that only provides a strange children's fantasy on a constant loop. Archer's Goon Show, a version of the CBBC classic redubbed with a soundtrack of The Goon Show.
Here's one for you, Nick. Nick's ring modulator for modulating your wedding ring?
What? Moving swiftly on. Path Finder, a sat-nav for suburban walking with the voice of a fighter pilot.
I would so get that one.
Turn left now, turning, attack.
Beware the hen in the sun. Beware the...
Public iPhone, a gritty no-thrills phone that sepia tones the first and last photos in the memory and slows the pace of every conversation to allow you to enjoy a more nuanced performance.
I would 10 out of 10 go for that every day. Interestingly enough, Everyday Tales, a festive board game where players must guess if the quote on the card is from The Survivors or The Archers. When it gets to Series 3 Survivors, it might as well be the same programme. And there you have it. On that, this and other fine tats available soon. Yours, T.E. Hodden. Fantastic stuff, mate. Phantasmagorical.
Well, this next one is subject was the haunted world of Nick and Benji, or something, 2 exclamation marks. And this was sent at 11:48 in the evening on the 4th of November from Alex Pass. Hello, Alex. Wow, what a podcast. I laughed 1 minute, then shrieked like a big girl's blouse the next. And not just because of the naughty words. He is, of course, referring to our Ghostwatch podcast, in which my computer fell on the floor when we were getting all spooky and frightened the lives out of Benji and me.
Terrifying.
I'm afraid, and we both swore, I'm afraid the dramatic ending was slightly ruined by my Bluetooth headphones chiming out, "Please charge me." Perhaps that was Pipes making his presence felt. Ooh. Or not. Pipes is the ghost in Ghostwatch. From Big Al, currently being haunted by the spirit of Mr. Jack Daniels, old number 7.
I can think of worse spirits to be haunted by, quite frankly. So, well, actually, no, but haunted the morning after doesn't sound very nice. Here's another message here. Bliss on a Monday morning. Sent on the 4th of the 11th, 2018 at 8:55 a.m. From Hugh McIlroy. Like most people, Monday morning for me is a drag, having to go into work early in the morning when I could be doing something far better instead, like sleeping. But no more for every Monday. I love putting on the Benji and Nick show, followed by the Big Finish podcast. Yeah. Yes, I know they're both broadcast on a Sunday, but I like to save it for the Monday. You two really help my Monday blues disappear, and I really look forward to it each week. So I just want to say thanks, guys. You brighten up my week. And there's a fun little winky alien emoji there, which is quite funky.
Is it alien? Mine's just a normal one.
Oh, for mine it's like a sort of weird little alien winking for some reason. Don't know why. Who knows? Really? Who knows? Sent from my iPhone on that one. So we're so glad that keeps you going. Monday morning blues are never fun. So we can get you giggling. Then that's what it's all about, innit?
Oh, lovely. Well, happy Monday morning, Hugh.
Indeed. Have a Kit Kat.
If only we could pass that through the audio sphere to you. Right, so it's time to call Jamie Anderson. Let's see what's going on here. Oh. He texted me to say he was eating some mince. Hello.
Hello.
You've had your hair cut.
Which one? Well, I did that yesterday. I thought we'd spoken since then. I feel like I speak to you every day, Nick, anyway, so...
Well, it's not just feeling like you do. I think you do.
I actually do.
I think we do speak. Anyway, how was the mince?
Very good. I mean, I'm slightly worried because I cooked it 3 days ago.
Oh.
And it's been in the fridge. So it's on the sort of cusp of what my grandmother would have said was all right to eat. But it was tasty.
Well, as long as you cooked it through and through, didn't bother.
There were some bits you might say were warm or perhaps tepid.
Well, we're going to an ITC event tomorrow. I don't want you over the sick bucket.
I'll bring the Imodium.
Well, if I'm over a sick bucket, I won't be coming. But no, I'm very much looking forward to the ITC event. Bizarrely, I'm currently editing the Jerry Anderson podcast, which will be finished before this goes out, but won't be out until Monday. And it's got a bit about the ITC event in there, which I had to make up because we haven't been yet. So it's all a bit weird.
Oh, do you pretend? I don't ever pretend they've been recorded at times they haven't been recorded.
Oh no, he said the whole thing is me saying it probably was okay or good or one of those things.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Anything else to share with us today? By the way, Benji said he'll bring some Imodium for you tomorrow.
Well, that'll only help with one vector, won't it?
Well, better to eliminate one than none.
If the sick bucket's there, then it's not going to help with that. Thanks, Benji.
It's all right.
Always,
No worries.
always half helpful.
The always half helpful Benji Clifford. He ain't half helpful. It's
Ain't
a new
half helpful,
sitcom.
Sam.
Benji, do you have a question for Jamie?
Surely he's got something.
Yeah. How are the animals today? Is it because it's horrible here? It's so grotty and rainy here. So, how are the animals? I hope they've got umbrellas.
The animals don't need umbrellas, Benji. They're fine. I've developed a new game with Mark and Harry the Pygmy Goats, where Mark comes up and jumps on my leg, and then I scratch his back, and then he runs away, bucks and jumps, and then rears up, and then walks towards me on his hind legs.
Good.
Oh,
We do that
wow.
several times over for fun.
Wow, the time flies by there.
Yes, Nick, it does. No, Bill, they're all fine, but they all are wet and sheltering in trees and stuff. Not in the trees, beneath the trees.
These pygmy goats climbing up trees. They would be truly
They
remarkable.
do climb.
Yeah.
They do climb. They get everywhere.
Do they?
God.
In
They climbed
trees.
on the neighbour's wall and sort of taunted their Jack Russell.
How does a goat taunt?
Sort
Goes,
of blinked at
meh.
it, looked at it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I'm up
and it's like,
here.
I can get up here and you can't.
Well, let's hope the Jack Russell doesn't get a ladder.
I think that's unlikely. He can't drive to get to B&Q.
Or can he?
Is this why you called?
Yes, absolutely. Just
Then my work here is done.
making a note of all those important facts. Anything else you want to add? Any blatant self-promotion?
Oh, yes.
Oh.
Can I blatantly self-promote something?
Yeah.
You know, this coming Friday is Black Friday. Or Captain Black Friday in the world of Jerry Anderson.
See what you did there.
Could you at least pretend to find that funny?
I did laugh.
Thanks. So, yes.
Not very
we're doing
convincingly.
No, really bad. We're doing a Captain Black Friday sale event on the Jerry Anderson store. So if people want to get some cheap Anderson tat, then they know where to go.
Well, you've really promoted that.
Yeah.
Tat. Yeah. I'm sure there's lots of very good stuff. Give me an example of some good stuff.
Woolly hats with the Shadow logo on or the International Rescue logo on there.
Oh,
Quite
right.
nice.
Yeah.
Any
Hoodies.
underpants?
Do you know we haven't investigated Anderson Underpants yet?
It rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
What, Anderson Underpants?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. You should do some Benji and Nick show Underpants.
There were some Big Finish underpants made by an American fan once, so maybe we should.
Gosh.
I mean, you don't have any old pairs of underpants from your dad, do you, that you could sell?
No, that would be weird. That would be really strange.
I was sort of aware of that when I suggested it.
Yeah, but it was already too late to stop suggesting it.
My mouth had started working on suggesting it. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thanks for letting me plug my tat.
Yes, you're very welcome. We'll see you tomorrow. You're going to be on the next Benji and Nick show. Did you know that?
Am I?
Yeah, in person, as
in
it were.
person.
Gosh.
We're going to record it.
Will you still relay everything that Benji says?
No, luckily you'll be able to hear him.
Are you sure?
I'm going to stand in a cupboard and Skype it.
Brilliant. Yeah, if you could stand away somewhere and then on the phone to you and you relay it to me in person, I would feel weird being able to hear what Benji has to say.
So we're going to get there about 4 o'clock.
Great. I will aim to get there between 4 and 4:30.
Okay.
Magic.
Well,
I'm very much looking forward to it, even though it is in the middle of nowhere, sort of.
Elstree and Boreham Wood. It's a very long walk from the
It's so
station.
difficult to get to. I've tried every which way. There's no easy way.
There isn't, no.
Oh well. First world problems.
Indeed.
It's true.
Indeed.
It's true.
And on that note,
Cheerio.
would go away.
Well, I would put it slightly more tactfully than that, but since you mention it, yes.
Okay, going away. Thank you.
Go away.
Bye.
Cut him off in mid-bye. That's even worse, isn't it? But
Ah!
well, there we are. The wonderful Jamie Anderson, son of Jerry Anderson, in case you were wondering why on earth we were talking to him. On to the main topic now. Into the Labyrinth.
Interesting one, that, wasn't it? Nick, you warned me in advance.
Yeah, it was your suggestion. Suggested in ignorance.
Well, I'm going to be... I'm going to say this. I didn't dislike it. Okay, because I loved the sort of... I liked the concept of it, and I thought this would be really good if it was done completely differently. A couple of things, really, for those who I suppose don't know what Into the Labyrinth is. It's about a group of kids.
What on earth is it?
Who you guessed it? They go into a cave, which happens to be Cheddar Gorge in Somerset, very famous telly cave. And they get transported to this weird sort of magician-y sort of man who basically tells them that they've got to go into a labyrinth which takes them through time to places and all sorts of weird stuff like that. It's a bit bonkers, and it leads me to my first kind of point, really, is that the whole episode, basically they spend trying to tell you what on earth is going on in this whole series. So it's like a sort of, you get a good 20 minutes of just explaining things. He's there going like, well, we're going into the labyrinth, and do you know what a labyrinth is? Well, it's a sort of maze, and it travels through time. Do you know what time is? Well, it's a sort of thing on a watch, and so basically you have to do a lot of walking. Do you know what walking is? Well, it's actually something to do with the shoes, and it goes on a bit like that. And it's really, the whole of the show is mostly the way I took it was mostly HTV kind of just trying to show off all the special effects that you can cram into one thing at one time.
Terrible special effects as well. Terrible,
yeah. It's very ambitious, but unfortunately it just does it so badly. I mean, you've got everything in there, really, haven't you? You've got CSO, like green screening sort of stuff. You've got studio little explosion-y things. You've got smoke machines. You've got laser beamy bolts drawn on stuff. You've got overlapping things, fun lighting. I mean, they're really loads of things whizzing around, and it's like such overkill, isn't it? My God, you just think, stop whizzing everything everywhere, stop it. And yet done mostly on one set. And when you mention Cheddar Gorge there, I mean, it's worth mentioning that Cheddar Gorge, I don't seem to be able to say it, seems to feature just in the opening and closing title sequences and as part of the CSO backgrounds. I think I'm right in thinking that no actor ever sets foot in the Cheddar Caves.
during the.
Don't think
it's
so.
all rather unconvincing cave sets. It stars Ron Moody, who Doctor Who fans will know was potentially going to be the third Doctor Who. They asked him before they asked John Pertwee. But Ron Moody, did he want to do? He wanted to make it all about songs and guitars or something, or was that? Oh, was that about John Pertwee? I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about now. I just don't know what I'm talking about. But anyway, Ron Moody ended up not being Doctor Who, and by his performance in this, it was a lucky escape, really, because there was one point where he was demonstrating the maze to everyone, and he was shouting so loudly. I thought, well. Has no one told him that the camera's quite close? Why are you speaking so? Everyone, and everyone sort of took their cue from him. You'd have close-ups of him going, "So the maze," and you just think, "Shut up, speak quieter. Why are you shouting so much?" It was all very theatrical. I mean, it was a very complete characterization, and he kind of looks good and neat in his sort of Time Lord's black master's outfit,
and incredibly pale makeup, hasn't he?
Yes.
He's like blue almost, isn't he? Really?
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's a lot of the lighting doing that. And Pamela Salem plays his sort of arch nemesis, who only appears very briefly in this first episode. But no power on earth will make me watch any more of this series. I remember watching quite a bit of it as well, not much of a kid, a bit of a youngster. I as you may remember from the last podcast, I was shocked to hear this was shown in 1980.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty grim, isn't it? Really, in terms of a bit of telly. I'm tempted to watch the second episode just to see, because I feel like this first one has spent all its time telling me all I need to know to go on this grand adventure, and then it ends on a sort of cliffhanger that they've finally gone on this adventure. I think isn't that great line that the kid just inexplicably manages to say? He goes, "We've just been in a temporal reality vortex," or something. Temporal.
Yeah, but he actually says it wrong, I think. I mean, it's worth saying that the child actors, I think, are pretty rubbish.
I would say though that
you think the girl's worse. Don't
I think the girl lets it down. I think the others are kind of. I mean, they're not great. They don't set the world on fire. But I think Phil is Simon Beale, isn't it? Terry is Simon Henderson. That must have been really complicated.
Simon, yes.
But the girl, bless her, she's very young. Lisa Turner, her name is. She's very young in it, but she really overacts everything to the point where, her eyes are literally moving like from left to right to tell everybody that she's a bit creeped out, and it's just.
Yeah, but I think that she's. I completely agree that it was a different order of awful acting, but I think the boys were just as bad in their own way.
I think
the older one. What was his name? The older one.
I don't know. I think there was Terry, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, he occasionally looks like he's going to be quite good, and then is absolutely rubbish. I think that I can't imagine Ron Moody putting up with having to act with these dreadful kids. I mean, no wonder he was shouting. He was probably trying to drive them away from him or something.
I did get that vibe that he was there going, say your line, I'm acting, I just want to act.
Take the money, get home.
Yeah.
It's buy something nice. I just think that I kept trying to pull myself back from what was happening on the screen and just listen to the words and thought, there's nothing... It's not a particularly good script, and it is obviously aimed for younger children, and they're welcome to it. But there's nothing wrong with the script, and I thought if all of this had been directed better and acted better, it would have been perfectly acceptable. It is kind of Bob Baker's attempt to do another version of Doctor Who. It's this wise, otherworldly person, and although the twist on this is wherever they go in time, bizarrely, they go through time in the Labyrinth, and everything is set in the Labyrinth, even though they're at different periods of time. That's odd. And Ron Moody will turn up in every episode as a different character or him at a different age. That's what it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
But he won't know them until they say his name. Rothgo. Is that his name? Rothgo?
Rothgo, yes.
I mean, it's such a dreary, boring, made up on the back of a fag packet idea, isn't it? I mean, it's just
It's an idea, though, that I think could be quite good. If executed correctly, I think you could have a lot of fun with it, and I think it could be really good. And actually, the set design isn't terrible. It's not great, but, those inside a cave stuff, it looked a little bit better than the odd polystyrene rock here and there.
That's true. It was equally as good as some of the less good episodes of Doctor Who.
Absolutely, but it's just executed spectacularly poorly. Although, to give some praise where praise is due, I would say that Sidney Sager, who did the music in this, famous for Children of the Stones,
and he does use some female vocals in this, doesn't he?
He does, but in this he does a much more, dare I say it, I'm going to say it, Dudley Simpson esque channeling going on there. Whether intentional or not, I don't know, but it certainly sounds quite intentional.
What's that synthesizer sound? That thing that keeps happening.
I don't know. That would be like I suppose just like a sort of long cross modulated thing, wouldn't it? Really, like a pitch bended modulation.
Yeah, but he's rather fond of that he's found that setting, isn't he? That appears quite a lot.
He's thinking it sounds like space. I could use that, But there is some great music in there. And I did find myself saying, I wish they isolated this music, because I would genuinely enjoy listening to it on its own, probably more so than watching the program. But the music was good. But apart from that, it was pretty dreadful, really.
It was. I think this is the worst thing we've ever watched. Let's just go back and think. Is there anything else we've liked less than this?
What did we really hate? We because people kept saying, "Oh, you really didn't like that."
Starfleet.
I think we were quite good. Starfleet, I thought we were pleasantly surprised about. Though there was one. Let me have a look through our catalogue of Benji and Nick show.
This is a programme about us trying to remember what we've done.
No, but we've done a few, haven't we? A Benji and Nick show. Let's have a look. Cool, we have done an awful lot of things.
Well, we're into the 30s now. I don't mean the 1930s.
Into the 1930s.
So we did the Dalek movies, we did Catweasel. The Changes was slaughtered, wasn't it?
Did we slaughter The Changes? The Changes is like an Oscar-winning movie next to this.
Yeah, I think you're right about that one.
This is just a total load of old codswallop. Yes.
I love that we both went for that. I'm just looking through them all now. We've got some great stuff we watched.
And you're the wrong generation for it, because you weren't born yet, were you?
We were pretty harsh to the Nightmare Man.
We were. That was ridiculous that we were so harsh about that. Again, that's like War and Peace compared to this.
It's so true. It's so true.
But you see, I was too old for it at the time, so I don't have fond memories of it. It was before your time, so you hadn't seen it, so you watch it, and come to it afresh and think, oh, what is this? I dare say people who were born in, the mid to late 1970s probably have very fond memories of this, and are at this moment deleting their subscription to the Benji and Nick show. So I'd like to apologise to you as you go.
Well, I think
we will be nicer about other things, I'm sure.
I think it's the type of programme, though. I think you're going to have really fond memories of it, and it's only when you go back and watch it that you'll see it for what it really is. I've had
quite
that with
often one doesn't
before.
Though. Quite often your affection, as John Nathan Turner used to say, the memory cheats.
Yeah, very true.
And you wear rose-coloured spectacles when you go back, because it still triggers all those things, and you think, oh, it is terrible, but no, I think our critical faculties are better than that. I think you can appreciate when something is. It's like the Owl Service. I was absolutely prepared to go in there and give it a good kicking, and it really surprised me. I haven't watched the rest of it yet, but, I was quite engaged by it, and there were loads of interesting things in it, and you got the sense that this is actually, without sounding too pompous, an important piece of work in television history. And I can't say that Into the Labyrinth is, except for the fact that they managed to get, someone who was essentially a movie star, Ron Moody, to appear in a real piece of rubbish children's television. That's quite a historically important fact, isn't it? I mean, it's a bit like Sir Derek Jacobi doing the voice for In the Night Garden, the children's BBC thing, except that In the Night Garden, for what it is a beautifully produced piece of very polished work. I mean, it's for preschoolers, so it's, nonsense, of course. But it's got all the right elements in it, and it's beautifully made, whereas this is just... I mean, it whizzes along, as you said. It whizzes along. But it's just...
it's just too...
The story's so dull.
Too much talking, not enough doing, I think.
Although there's a lot of explosions and, laser effects, as you said, lightning bolts. I don't think the script is especially bad. It's the script is especially mediocre, and it's not being saved by anything. If only the performances could have been remodelled to be a little more realistic.
Well, it's the type of thing it could probably work if it was done nowadays, for example. I think you could probably do it justice, and you could probably do something that's vaguely entertaining for kids with modern, with the way that now kids telly is, looks pretty great, really, when you think about, that some of the things that kids telly achieves special effects wise now compared to then.
Yeah.
It's a
whole
different...
They're computers, isn't it?
Oh, them there computers, innit? Those magical things. But yeah, it's a stinker for me. I'm giving it a 1, I'm afraid. A 1 exclamation mark for me.
Yeah, I'm giving it that line of the exclamation mark without the dot at the bottom, without the full stop, because, it just makes me tired just to think about it. And an exclamation mark is a sign of slightly too much vigour, I feel, for this. So not even a full exclamation mark from me. Into the Labyrinth can get into the Labyrinth and bloomin' well stay
there.
And don't come back!
Don't come back, you fool. But hey-ho.
There you go.
Such is the nature of the Benji and Nick show that we must go through these. We do the watching, so you can if you want, or you don't need to.
Next time... in fact, tomorrow we're doing it, but next time the podcast will be us. Will be us. That's it. We're going to an ITC event with the Unmutual. What's it called, the event? I can't remember.
So the event is called A Celebration of ITC.
Right. And we're going to go along and have a chat, and we're going to talk generally about ITC shows next week. So it's a little bit different. It's a bit more planned. The idea of it will be chaos when we get there. And hopefully we'll have Jamie Anderson, as I mentioned before, to Jamie, as a guest star, and Rick Davey of The Unmutual as a guest star. Anyone else will be a bonus, frankly.
It's very true. We can get Nora the Tea Lady. And
she's great. She's
brilliant.
She's a big fan of Into the Labyrinth, actually.
Oh, is she? Oh, well, we won't have her then.
Yeah, witness me smashing up her tea trolley.
I don't want sugar, and I don't want these macaroons either. Now go back in the...
You thought Ron Moody's performance was subtle. How about this for subtlety?
Oh, marvellous. But yes, so the special thing, obviously, next time it'll be a live one, very similar to what we did with Ghostwatch, which was a live, all in the same room thing, which is quite exciting. People liked that a lot, I think. So hopefully it'll be the usual chaos and madness.
Okay, well, time to get back close to the microphone.
Zooming in dramatically.
Thanks for listening. I hope we've brightened up your Sunday or Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday or Friday. Or indeed Saturday.
I was going to say, I didn't want you to forget that vital old chestnut.
I know, all the days of the week.
Yes, well, from me, Benji C, it is goodbye.
And from me, Nick B, goodbye. Pressing stop now. Ka-chung.